Yeah. Cool. I can look. Hang on. I'll get that on. Yeah. Just wait.
Who's starting now?
I'm just going to put the PowerPoint into the Zoom.
Oh, it's looking back. Oh,
What is it?
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be presenting on the New Covenant and how it fits into the New Testament. The Lexham Bible Dictionary describes the New Covenant as a covenant between God and his people that is anticipated in the Old Testament and fulfilled in the New Testament. The New Covenant involves forgiveness of sin, spiritual transformation, and the fulfillment of God's promises to Israel.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
In Luke 22, Jesus is sitting down with his disciples to have the Last Supper, and he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Likewise, he also took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." Jesus' death and resurrection were the beginning of the new covenant. Luke was a Gentile and was writing mainly to Gentiles about the life of Jesus. Acts chapter 2 is the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, which was the start of spiritual transformation. Jesus had commanded his disciples, "Do not depart from Jerusalem, but to wait for the promise of the Father. For you shall be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now. But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be witnesses to me in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the end of the earth." Acts was also written by Luke, which outlined the spread of the gospel and the work of the Holy Spirit through the disciples. God enables us to be ministers of the new covenant. Paul, an apostle of Christ, in one of his letters to the Corinthians says, "Not that we are sufficient of ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God, who also made us sufficient, as ministers of the new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life." On the island of Patmos, John was given revelation to show of things that would take place. In Revelation 7:9-10, it says, "After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, people, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, 'Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb.' One day we will stand before our God, joined together with all of the other saints." Going again. As stated before, the new covenant started with the death and resurrection of Jesus. This included the forgiveness of sins and breaking down the dividing wall between Jews and Gentiles. The new covenant was not just for Jews, as it had been in the Old Testament, but for all who would believe. Jesus made a way for each one of us to have access to the Father. No longer do we have to go to a man-made temple and priests to offer sacrifices that do not last. God did not leave us as orphans, but he sent us his Holy Spirit to empower us to live our lives for him. He gave us his word. Most of the New Testament is the letters that were written to the early churches as an example of how we are to live our lives. And finally, he promises that one day he will come back for us and that we will rule and reign with him. The New Covenant is crucial to understand in the overall story of the New Testament. as without it, we would still be in the Old Testament, under the law, and having to offer sacrifices every time we sin. Hebrews chapter 9 explains this well. It says that Christ came as high priest with the greater and more perfect tabernacle, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, which was without spot. He offered himself to God and entered the most holy place once for all, having obtained eternal redemption. The blood of Christ shall cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. He is the mediator of the new covenant by means of death for the redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, that those who are called may receive the promise of the eternal inheritance. The new covenant transforms people's hearts through the work of the Holy Spirit and is based on a relationship with God himself, not by law or works. And Ezekiel sums it up really well when he says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. Thank you for listening.
Repeat.